Hello and welcome to Friday's bonus edition of Cracking the Cryptic. And I'm on classic Sudoku duty today. We've got a puzzle for you by Sam Cappleman-Lynes, and we instantly know when we hear that name that we're in for a treat. Sam is undoubtedly one of the finest Sudoku makers working in the world today, and he sent me this puzzle earlier in the week, especially for our bonus videos, so I'm sure it'll be brilliant. I want to mention a few things though. Mark recorded a video earlier on this evening of Kurt Hugo Schneider's latest puzzle. Now, it's always worth checking out Kurt's puzzles. We've featured one on the channel before. It was brilliant, and he's done a star battle for us this time. Those of you who don't know, Kurt is one of the world's premier YouTubers. Trots along at something like 13 million subscribers, so I hope he's going to lend us a few. That would be fantastic. So do check out Mark's video and have a go at Kurt's puzzle. Also on Patreon today there has been a flurry of activity. Now the first thing to mention is that we have another free puzzle up there. This one's been compiled by Nicholas Rasmussen from Montreal. Nicholas is only 14 years old, and he sent us a really brilliant little puzzle, which is up there for you guys to try. It's sort of a puzzle hunt theme, so there are no instructions per se. You have to turn what Nicholas has given you into an English word or phrase, and it's definitely worth your time. It really is a brilliant puzzle. We've also put up 2 bonus videos for patrons of the channel on Patreon. We have Mark's latest solve of the Times Club Monthly Special Crossword, which is definitely worth viewing. Very, very rare you see Mark struggle with a cryptic crossword, and undoubtedly in that video he struggles. And also a solve of the recent double choco puzzle from the UK Puzzle Championship. That's a puzzle by Robert Volmet, another brilliant puzzle constructor. And so we've done a walkthrough of that puzzle as well. So if you aren't sponsoring the channel on Patreon, it's $2 a month to do that, and it's really massively appreciated, and there is a lot of extra content there as well. Now let's have a look at this. If you want to have a go, obviously as usual on Cracking the Cryptic, all you do is click on the link under the video, and that takes you to a web page that looks just like this one, and you can play along. And with that, let's get cracking and see how to solve Sam's puzzle. So classic Sudoku. Done a lot of variants recently and not many classics, so I'll probably be rusty. Let's see how bad it is. Put in 5s up here. As usual, what I'm doing in the initial stages of any Sudoku is I'm pencil marking in the corner of squares. So where I pencil mark in the corner of a square, that is, I'm looking at logic that applies within the 3x3 block. And I'm saying that a 5 in this 3x3 block must go in one of 2 positions. Now if you contrast that, if I say labelled this square like this with a 1 and a 3, this is not corner notation, this is central notation, and if I do this, I'm just looking at the cell itself, not the box, just the cell. I'm saying that cell could only be a 1 or a 3. So that's the 2 types of pencil marks that I use when I solve, whether it's on computer or on paper. 4s must be in one of those squares. Now straight away I'm noticing here that I seem to be getting no given digits at all from the sort of given digits in the grid. There's no gimmies. I've not been able to put in a single number yet, which suggests that there is a trick we're going to have to find right at the beginning of this one. Not unusual for Sam's puzzles to require a little bit of cleverness early on. And the question is how serious the cleverness that's required is. I've known Sam require a jellyfish as the first stage, so I'm hoping it's not going to be anything quite that exotic. Now, what is it I'm meant to be spotting here? Ah, yes. there's a sort of New York Times type trick going on, I think, down this column. We've got a 3 and a 6 in this box. So we know we have to put somewhere in column 8, we've got to put the 3 and the 6, and they can't be in either of those two squares. Now, if we scan across here, we've got a 3 and a 6 already in row 5, and a 3 and a 6 already in row 9. So I think there are only 2 squares left in column 8 that can take the 3 and the 6, and it's those 2. So effectively now we've got 5 given digits now in column 8, and we need to place 1, 2, 8 and 9. So this square at the top can only be an 8 or a 9. That square, he's a 2 and a 9 there, so that can only be a 1 and an 8. Other things I'm noticing when I do this, by the way, I'm noticing this 1 is it's removing a 1 from these 2 squares, which means a 1 can only go in 2 positions in column 8. So once I notice that a digit can only go in 2 positions in a row or column, I always try and check whether there are other columns of the grid in this instance where the 1 is similarly restricted. Now, unfortunately here, I don't think there is. The 1 here, 1 in column 4 can go in 3 positions, go in lots of positions in column 5. So there isn't an interaction there, but that is how I solve once I spot that sort of thing. Let's use 5s. Oh, sorry, this is staring me in the face as well. Look, 1s, 3s here at the bottom. It's same trick again. Easier to see this time because of the open 3 cells in this box. So we know in row 7 we need to find homes for a 1 and a 3, and we know they can't be in any of those 3 squares straight away. So where can we put them? Well, if we look at column 1, there's already a 1 and a 3 up there. And look at these sort of symmetrically X-wing type arrangement of 1s and 3s in column 9. So this is clearly all deliberate from Sam. Removes a 1 and a 3 from this square. Now that's perfect, because that means these 2 squares have to contain the digits 1 and 3. The only places those digits can go in row 7, and you can see this one can't be a 1 because we know from what we did earlier this has to be a 3 or a 6. So in that fact that's a 3, that's a 6. This must be a 1, this must be a 3 from the pencil marking. And now we are off to the races. We can do a bit of standard Sudoku look, put some digits in the grid at last. 1's into those squares, 1's into one of those positions at the bottom. And oh, look, where can we put a 6 in row 2? This 6 takes care of that square, that 6 takes care of those 2 squares, that 6 takes care of that square. That's a 6. That's a 6. These 6's interact and force us to place 6's into these 2 squares. Now the moment this happens, that we can change our pencil marking now, because we have 5's and 6's locked into the same 2 squares in this 3x3 block. So we now know that these 2 cells must contain the numbers 5 and 6, because we know that the 5 is in one of these 2 positions and the 6 is in one of these 2 positions. So what I can do therefore is switch the notation to say these 2 cells are the numbers 5 and 6 in some order. Nine here locks a 9 into one of those 2 squares. That's quite cool, because that locks a 9 up there as well, look. Oh, that is cool, because this 9 sees that square, which we labelled earlier, so that can no longer be a 9, that must be an 8. Gives us our third 8 in the grid. There's an aeroplane going by outside. I don't know if you can hear that. This 8 fixes a 1 at the bottom, therefore. That must be a 1 now by normal Sudoku rules, and these are 1s here. These 2 squares have got to be 2 and 9. We don't yet know the order, I think. 9 must be in one of those squares because of this 9 down here. 7s, 3s. Let's have a look at this row because we've got quite a lot going on in it. We can see we need 7, 8 and 9. And only this square seems to be restricted by the 9 at the bottom. So this is 7 or 8. Oh, no, that one. That one sees the pencil mark 9s. That's 7 and 8 as well. God, I nearly missed that then. So this square must be a 9. These 3 squares are now forced. You can see they've got to be 1, 7 and 8. So we can pencil mark those in. Get rid of the 1 there. And that effectively gives us 6 digits in in row 3. We're still looking to place 2, 4 and 9 again. This one we know sees the 9s down here, and it sees a 2 there, look. So that square has to be a 4, which gives us an 8 and a 7. That fixes a 4 up here, just using our pencil marks. That forces the 9 and the 2 into those squares. And now we're doing better. The 7 now is forced over to that side. That must be the 9. Must be 7, oops, 7 in one of these 2 squares. This 9 fixes that this is a 2. 2, 3, 6. So a little flurry of activity. I'm going to check this column now. I still need to place 4 and 5 into the open cells. 6. One of these 2 squares must be a 4 because of the 4 up here. This 7 fixes that this isn't a 7. That must be the 7. So in this box we still need to place 5, 6 and 8. So the 6 must be over on this side. This square must be 5 or 8. Sorry, just a quick pause while I try and spot something else. The 4 here locks the 4 down there, look. So the 4 must be in one of those 2 squares. This square is weak, and you can see this because if we compare the contents of row 8 with the contents of column 5 there's a lot of disparity. We're not seeing the same digits, so we know that this square in fact is going to have to either be, can't be 1, 2, 3, 4, it's got to be a 5 or an 8. Oh, which means it's the same as that one. So now look at if we look at row 8 here, there is a 5, 8 pair. So this has got to be 2, 6 and 9 into the open cells. That square can't be a 2 or a 9. That must be a 6. This square must be 5 or 8. There's an 8 over there, so that must be 5. That's 8. That locks an 8 down here. So this square can no longer be an 8. That's a 5, obviously. 6. These 2 squares have got to be 2 and 9. These 2 squares have got to be 4 and 8. Ah, there's an 8 there, so that's useful. We can finish that off. 8 and 4. 8 into one of these 2 squares. Now that's nice. That allows us to do a little trick. Look. The 8's in 2 different 3 by 3 blocks are locked into the same columns of the grid. So you can see in column 4 and column 6, we know in this block the 8 is definitely in one of those two columns, and in this block the 8 is definitely in one of those two columns. So there can't possibly be more 8s in columns 4 and 6, otherwise we're going to have a repeated 8. So those squares can't be 8, which means this square is an 8. That's a 7 because it can't be a 1, and this is a 1. Places 1s down there now. 7 must live in one of those two squares. These three squares have got to be 3, 5 and 9. So let's pencil mark that in. We can get rid of the 3 in that one. I'm not seeing anything else I can do there though. 2, 4, 5, 9 there. So this column we need 1, 2, 4 and 9. So this square is quite weak. It can only be 2 or 4. Not seeing anything much better than that. 5. So of course this is a 5. I should have seen that before. That means that's a 4. 4 is locked into one of those two squares. This square must be a 4. That square's weak because it sees a 2 and a 4 there. So this square can only be a 9. It can't be a 2 or a 4. That fixes those. This 2 here and these 2's interact on this box. They force us to pencil mark 2's into the same squares we have 1's pencil marked into. So again, we now know that this is a 1, 2 pair, and we can place a 9 in the middle there. That fixes this one to be a 5. Now we're honing in on the values of the middle. Look, we still need to place a 7 into one of those squares, and we have a 7 there. So that's a 7, that's an 8. This is an 8 therefore, just unwinding our earlier pencil marks. You can see when I place this 7, because of these 7's here, I'm taking the pencil mark of a 4. So I can do that and I immediately place the 4, immediately place the 4 here, immediately place the 1, the 2, and all of a sudden a little flurry of activity there. This square has to be a 2 as well, actually, looking at that. Now that means that one's a 2, and in placing that I take the place of a pencil mark 3. And this can continue round the grid here. This should be a 5 to complete the box. That means the 5 and the 6 at the top can be unwound. This must be a 9. This must be a 6, I think. We're just left with 2 squares over there. The 7 must be here. And if I haven't made a mistake, that should be a 5. That's filled in. There we go. And that's how to solve Sam's puzzle. Brilliant as always. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Do let us know in the comments. And please subscribe if you're not subscribers to the channel. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back tomorrow with more Cracking the Cryptic.